Hi, Cecile. How are you? Can you hear me, Cecile?
Yes.
Hi, I just want to let you know this is going to be live streamed. So, just so that you're aware, okay? We're live
All
streaming
right.
right now.
Very good. I just wanted to be sure that I had the connection, etc., because I've had some trouble. And
Oh,
so I'm connected. How are you,
great.
Fiona?
Good, thank you. Good, thank you.
So
So,
are our accountants there?
no one has come on as yet, so we're just slowly waiting for the committee members and Rob Danielle to come in.
Who's going to come?
The committee members, Pete and Melissa, and Rob Danielle should be on shortly.
Oh, all right. Very good.
All
So we
right.
can, do we have any problems?
I don't believe so. I'm pretty sure Jamie will address them. So in the interim, I'll just keep myself on mute.
Okay.
Thank you, Cecile.
Thank you for everything, Fiona. You're just wonderful in keeping up with it all.
Thank you, Cecile. You're wonderful
And
as well.
we don't have governance, right? That was
No,
pulled.
no, we
Okay,
don't.
right. All right.
We don't have that, but we have our board meeting coming up at 1 o'clock.
Right at 1 o'clock. Yes.
Okay.
I
All right.
do have
Thank you,
that.
Cecile.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, Cecile.
Hi, Daniel.
How
How
are you?
nice
So
to
nice
see you.
You,
It's
you
such
look
a
phenomenal. Good for you.
pleasure. Well, I'll be home at the end of next week.
Well, we're back to in person for April, so we look forward to seeing you.
Yeah, and I look forward to seeing you. What's going on?
You look great.
Jane?
Florida is doing you well, so you look phenomenal. We are just waiting for everyone else to join. We are live streaming, so we're required to live stream on our website, which we're doing. So if there is, and I'll remind everyone when we get everyone on, but if there's anything proprietary that we need to discuss, just let us know and Fiona will pull us into an executive session.
Yes, right, right.
Okay.
Well, it looked like everything was pro forma for our,
Yeah.
right, right.
Unmodified,
And
no
Rob
material
didn't have any questions, did he?
No, and anything that we had, we went through. He's going to be on, so he'll be joining.
Yes,
too.
no, I'm just asking you. So since it's live stream, whether
Yeah,
there
no,
was-
I mean, everything, we went through everything. Any questions that he had, it came back unmodified, no material weaknesses. So we're in a
No,
great
I
position.
saw that. I was very, that's what I always look
Yes,
at,
yes.
material.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Hi,
I see
Melissa.
Melissa is on too. But Melissa's muted. I'm the only one who.
It looks like, I think she's still connecting. So she's still
Oh,
actually.
is that what? All right. That's
connecting
what it
through.
is. Yeah, now, all right. So Melissa, you're muted. Hi, Melissa.
Hi, how are you, Cecile?
Good. How are you?
I am doing well, thank you.
Hi, Melissa, how are you?
Good.
Yeah. So it's nice. All right. Your face is obscured by my participants. It's telling me how many, so I'm going to take it off. Okay, now I can see that Melissa's there.
Melissa, I just want to remind you, we're live streaming. So we're required to live stream on the website. So I just want to remind everyone, especially since we're going through audit, if there's anything proprietary that you'd like to discuss, just let us know and Fiona can pull into an executive session.
Perfect, got it.
And I know you have a hard stop at 12, right?
I do.
We'll get you out of here.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Oh, I love that background.
Thank you. Might turn one of my bedrooms into that.
Yes. Well, I'm sitting out on the screen porch so that I get the last of the nice, weather.
Very nice. Cecile, are you home or are you in Florida?
I'm in Florida. That's why I'm sitting out on the screen porch.
Very. It's
Right.
starting to warm up
I'll
here.
be home next week. I'm
Very
coming
nice.
home next week. Right.
Perfect timing. Perfect timing. You stayed those extra couple of weeks because we had a rough week.
Right.
Just starting to warm up.
Well, I went very late, I went, it was almost, I went January 28th. So,
Oh, wow.
so it hasn't been so long. Anyhow, the weather is beautiful here.
I'm going to pop off for a minute just so we make sure that we're getting Pete on and then we have everyone set. I'll be right back. Just a reminder, we're live streaming. So.
All right.
Hi, Cecile.
Hi.
How are you?
Oh, Pete. Hello, Pete.
Hi, Cecile. How are you?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't see you. I don't know.
I know I'm going to try and get
Do
there.
you have your video on?
I have to look.
Yeah,
Oh,
you
here
have
we
to
go.
turn
Oh,
your video on.
there we go.
There you are, Pete. Hello.
How are you?
So I'm still I'm in Florida, but I'm coming home next week. So
Okay.
so you better see if we can do some good weather for me.
Yeah. Hope so.
Hi, Pete. How are you?
Hi, Jamie.
We tricked you thinking you were going to have to be in person today. So thank God they, it was beneficial that they extended the legislation. That worked out for us.
Cool. Cool.
Just a reminder, we're live streaming currently. IT had to set it up early, so we are live streaming. Because it's audit, if there's anything proprietary that we need to discuss, if you just, we can motion for executive session, and Fiona can bring us into executive session, or bring the board members into executive session.
Okay.
I think we're just waiting. Rob Danielle is now on. I think Michael Curdy and Jim Kavanaugh, we're just waiting for them to jump on, and then we can start rolling.
Yeah, I see Rob is on.
Hi, Rob.
Hey, Rob.
Hello.
Oh, that's a good background. The IDA needs a background like that. I like the logo.
How's everyone doing?
Hi, Rob. Nice
Hi,
to see
how are you?
you.
You too? How are things? Okay.
Yeah, right. Well, I'm in Florida. I'm sitting out on the screen porch. And I'm coming home next week. So I said, everybody has to help with weather. So do a dance. I want some good weather.
It's getting better, so that's a good sign.
Yeah, today's going to be nice. I think it's like going up to 65 today, right?
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
like summer
That's
to us here.
Well, that's very good. That's very good.
I mean, it's not as good as 80, but we'll take it.
Right. So
Rob, I'm just reminding everyone, sorry, Cecile, just reminding everyone that we are live streaming. So considering that it's an audit meeting, if we do need to, so we are recording and live streaming. If we need to discuss anything proprietary, we'll just ask for a motion, and we can bring everyone into executive session if needed.
Right. So, all right. So let me know when we have enough people, and I'll call the meeting to order.
So we do have enough people. It's 11 o'clock, so we can officially start. We can call the meeting.
All right. So I would like to call the meeting of the audit committee of the IDA to order. The first order of business is the review of our audit.
We'll just do an official roll call.
All right.
So we have Cecile Singer,
Here.
Peter Kishak,
Here.
Melissa Nassarino.
Here.
Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
All right. So, right. Do we have any minutes from our prior meeting?
We do. We have minutes from our December 9th meeting
Yes,
for approval.
right. All right. So you have the minutes in your packet. And if everyone will just take a minute to look. And if there are no additions or corrections, may I have a motion?
I'll make a motion, Cecile.
All right.
Second.
And is there a second? Thank you, Melissa. All right. Any objections? The motion is passed. Thank you. So now we'll begin with the meeting and go through the review. And Rob, what have you got to tell us?
Okay, I'm gonna put something up on the screen. Let me see. Am I able to share, Jamie?
Sure, Fiona can share. She can allow you to host, and you'll share your screen.
Okay.
Should be set, Rob.
Can you see? You actually see the
We do.
okay, good. All right, so I'll start with this. All right, good morning, and thank you for having me present the financial statements and audit results of the Yonkers IDA, or Industrial Development Agency, again for the fiscal year ended December 31st, 2021. I put together a PowerPoint to kind of condense the information to easily present it. But before I begin, I just wanted to thank Jamie. I wanted to thank Sibby and the entire office there, again, for their professionalism and really being available throughout the entire audit process while they're still handling their day-to-day activities. So again, thank you. I'm just gonna scroll here. If we turn to the table of contents, we'll go over the status of the audit opinion, and basically the financial statements have been drafted, reviewed by management. Management has prepared the MD&A, so we once you folks approve the report, it can go final. We'll go through some financial statement highlights comparing the 2021 activity to 2020. We have our required communications along with our management letter or communication of internal control matters. As far as the required communications, we'll briefly touch upon what our role is as your external auditors and what management's role is. And then in the back is a sample of our management representation letter, which we get at the conclusion of the audit, which basically says that you've provided us in a number form or in a detailed bullet form, all of the information so that we can perform the audit and offer an opinion. And then the last couple of pages is just a firm overview. You can see that we have expanded tremendously over the past couple of years. And then in the back, there's some other work that we do other than audits, if you may be interested in. So I'm just going to scroll here. And just let me know that you can see this, and if it's an issue, let me know. So as I mentioned, the field work is complete. The financial statements have been drafted, reviewed with management thoroughly. We have issued what is termed an unmodified opinion. An unmodified opinion is a clean opinion. It's the highest level of assurance that an entity can receive. And it basically states that the financial statements present fairly the financial position of the Yonkers IDA at a specific point in time, in this case, as of December 31st, 2021, and in accordance with the accounting standards, in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. So again, once these reports are accepted by you, we can go final with the independent auditor's report, the report on internal controls, and then there's some public authority and accountability documents that we will get as well, which would conclude wrapping up the audit. So I'm not going to, the audit approach, you can see the chart. This was gone over through our planning session. I'm not going to really spend much time, but we do come in December and January, do some preliminary work, looking at your transaction cycles, your payroll, cash receipts, cash disbursements. Then we come back and we probably spend about 2 weeks completing the audit, where we do what we call our substantive work, and we kind of drill down into various details in the account analysis. I'm going to turn to the financial statement highlights. I'm going to skip the balance sheet or the statement of position. I'm going to start with the statement of activities. Just go down a little bit. Go up. And you can see we are presented 2021 versus 2022. And again, from an overall standpoint, you can see that total operating revenues are dramatically up from 2020, from $766,000 to almost $3.5 million in 2021. So that's great news. I know 2020 was hampered with the COVID pandemic, but it appears that things are starting to pick up again. So that's great news. As far as your agency and refinancing fees, you did close on some large projects. Just to name a few, the Hudson View generated about $300,000 in agency fees. You had 57 Alexander Street LLC generated over $870,000 of agency fees, and a couple other projects, Conifer Realty, $388,000, in fees, and the Yonkers School joint construction, the building of the new
Is
school.
Lionsgate included in that, Rob?
Is that under a different, is Lion Gates under a different name? I'm not sure.
So Lionsgate Phase 2 it's included.
It is
Okay.
included. Thank
is.
you.
So you generated $2.3 million in agency fees in 2021. You have a contribution from the city of Yonkers, which is included in your expenses under consulting fees. You did lay out for some architect work, some consulting, some engineering, and that was reimbursed by the city of Yonkers. We like to show that in gross, so we picked up the income from the city, but you have the corresponding expenditures included in the consulting and professional fees line.
That's for the St. Denis School, I believe, correct?
I'm
Anyone?
sorry.
That's for the St. Denis School? Those
A
were the
portion,
fees
I
paid?
believe, is, yes. There's another piece as well. Maybe Cindy could talk to that.
Yeah, so those are related to Savin Engineers and the KG&D, both
Right.
for the construction of the school.
You're right. So what happened there is that we fronted the money. The city subsequently issued a bond, and now the city's repaying us out of that bond for our expenditures.
Okay. Yeah, so it's a wash, but we like to report it gross.
Yeah, it's just
Okay.
when you see contribution, you say, well, why is the city contributing? It's really a repayment of funds that we spent on behalf of the city.
Okay. As far as management administration fees, $159,000, and that's almost doubled, more than doubled from last year. And there's two components to that. The agency does receive some reporting fees for billable projects. Those fees range anywhere from like $500 to $2,000. That generated about $79,000 of the $159,000, and then you did receive $80,000 to manage the Yonkers Larkin Garage for 2021. Some application fees. You do have licensing fees, $120,000. I believe these are licensing fees from the peer. I believe it's $12,000 a month. So $10,000 or $12,000 a month, I believe, or maybe $10,000 a month.
Is it 10,000 a month?
Yeah, for 12 months. So that generated $120,000. So that's mainly your revenue side. If we go down a little bit, your expenses, you can see salaries are up a little bit. There was some small raises, as well as the addition of one person, and that resulted in the increase in the current year. Your payroll taxes, you can see that's down, although your payroll taxes related to the salaries are up. Your pension, because the pension system is well funded, your pension liability is dramatically down, and that's something that's provided by New York State. And you can see that the pension program is one of the best funded pensions in the country. It's almost 100% funded. It's like 99.25% funded, and that drew down your current year expense and ultimately your current year liability, and that's something we need to report. Your rent seems to be down compared to last year, but there's a couple of things. Rent is actually up about 3%, but in 2020 there was a security system that was put there that was included in your rent payments, and that was about $40,000 last year. So if you really back that out, you're pretty consistent on the rent with the 3% increase. As I mentioned before, your consulting and professional fees, that includes the architects that Sibby mentioned for the school project. We show that grossed up. So that really contributed to the increase in 2021. Advertising, premium, and reproduction. Again, these are just advertising on the new school project. It's actually down. You did a big advertising program in 2020, and that continued into 2021, but it was more so on the new school projects. Your other expenses are pretty much in line. Depreciation is your annual depreciation on your capital assets. Mainly, you absorb the Yonkers Pier and its leasehold improvements, and we're depreciating that over the life of those assets. And then you can see the last line there, your emergency disaster relief grants. Last year, because of the pandemic, you did issue grants to small businesses that were in need. And obviously that was a 2020 thing. It didn't fall into the 2021 year. And those were grants that were given out that don't have to be paid. You come down, you have income for the year of a little over $1.1 million. If you factor in what we call these non-operating expenses, and let me just go down a little bit. You do operate the Workforce Investment Program. The IDA was designated as the grant recipient of the Workforce Investment Program, and that was to create workforce investment activities. The grant folks are hired and they're paid out of this grant on a cost reimbursement basis. So you can see revenues match expenses. However, at the end of the year, whatever is spent is claimed for, and you do have a receivable that offsets to match the revenues and expenses. As far as interest income, interest rates are at all-time low. You can see that that's down from 2020. And you do have some interest expense because the IDA did absorb a Section 108 loan when they absorbed the activities of the pier. There's a balance of $675,000 on that loan. And you also have a New York Power Authority's loan with a balance of about $265,000. So overall, you did generate $1 million. Your revenues did exceed your expenditures by $1 million, and you're able to add that to your opening net position of $5.8 million. So you end the year at $6.9 million. So rather healthy year considering COVID in the prior year. So now I'm just going to go back to the balance sheet here. And as I mentioned, you ended the year at $6.9 million. You see that at the bottom there, the $6.9 million, and I'll talk about those components in a minute. But if we go to the top here, and I apologize, it's hard to fit this on the page here, but just jumping around here. Let me just go down a little bit. Your total assets are up about $1 million. You can see from 7.5 million to $8.5 million. But most of your assets are liquid, if you will. They're in the form of cash, $7.9 million. You do have some accounts receivable of about $150,000, and that includes some of the Workforce Investment Board receivables that I discussed before. There is an allowance against those receivables. There's some monies. An allowance was set up, I believe, a couple of years ago based on the Yonkers Pier, and Peter Kelly does owe some monies that go back to, I think, 2019 and 20. And since payment wasn't guaranteed and things weren't worked out, the agency decided to take an allowance because we don't know when that will happen. So that still stays on the books. The accounts receivable is not written off, but the agency did take an allowance against it. You also have a loan receivable that's also fully allowed for. This is a loan from the wind down of the New Market tax credit in the Larkin garage. This represents a loan balance of $2.6 million that was brought over, as well as some accrued interest. And this is to be paid back to the IDA if the Larkin garage is profitable. And since we don't know when some of those payments will happen, the loan is fully allowed for. It's not written off, it's just allowed for because we don't know the timing of when the Larkin garage will be in the black. And then some other restricted cash, you do have money set aside for specific activities, and that's detailed in the notes. If I come down a little bit, in addition to the grants that the IDA gave out last year, you did also give out some small loans to businesses. And that was to begin to be repaid once the pandemic was deemed to be over with, which I believe happened sometime in June or July of 21. So these loans are starting to be paid back and should be paid back in 2022. And again, we'll have to readdress this at the end of 12/31/22 to see what has been paid to that point. And you do have $3 million in capital assets, mainly the leasehold improvements on the Yonkers Pier, and those are depreciated over the life of those assets. If we come down to your liabilities here, you can see accounts payable incurred expenses. Those are just your normal payables in the normal course of business. Some of those have been subsequently paid in January through March of this year. What's new here is your escrow deposits. The IDA was part of a new, there was some new pilots that the IDA generated, pilots for the city of Yonkers and I believe a portion for Westchester County, that the IDA facilitated, and in forming those new pilot agreements, there was some collateral that the IDA received. And this is basically $126,000 is collateral. It's 1 year's worth of pilot agreements that the IDA holds on to for the term of the pilot. And some of these pilots are 5 to 10 years. And if the companies make their normal pilot payments at the end of the term of the pilot agreement, these will be returned. These are set aside in individual accounts. They're earning interest. The entire amount, if the companies don't default, gets returned to the companies, including the accrued interest. So the IDA is tracking that. I believe there are 2 companies currently. And obviously this will go up as the pilot payments go up, because it requires the IDA to retain 1 year's worth of pilot payments. And the schedule of the pilot payments has annual increases. So every year the IDA will get the difference and hold it as collateral, if you will. As I mentioned before, you do have some loans. The Section 108 loan, $675,000. Those are being paid currently. And you have a New York Power Authority's loan, again, almost $265,000. So combined, that's your $800,000 or $900,000 in loans that are due in 1 year and long-term loans. Then you come down to the bottom, as I mentioned, your net position. You increase net position by over $1 million. Not all of that is in the form of cash. You do have fixed assets, if you will, a little over $2 million. And those are the leasehold improvements less the debt that I just mentioned related to those leasehold improvements. But more importantly, the IDA does have the $4.7 million of unrestricted net assets that's free and clear to be used for its activities. And that has gone up, you can see, from $3 million to $4.7 million. So, although there was an unusual year in 2020 for due to the pandemic, it appears that activity is starting to pick up, which is a great sign. And overall, the IDA did have a relatively great year.
Right. And our liquidity is certainly excellent. So it bodes well for the future because we have the ability to do many things and we're in a position to take advantage of whatever comes to us.
Right. Right. You have almost $5 million in freed up unrestricted funds that you can utilize for other projects. All right, I'm just going to go down here, and I don't want to spend a lot of time, but this is what we call our required communications. Although we get the financial statements together, and our main goal is to, form and express an opinion on those financial statements. As I mentioned, we have issued an unmodified opinion, which is the highest opinion you can get. We obtain reasonable assurance that the financial statements are free from material misstatements. And we say that because we don't look at every transaction. We do our sampling, and if anything deviates in our sample, then we would increase our sample. And obviously, if there was a problem, we would bring it to your attention before we got to this point. We are required, any journal entries that we derive, we are required to communicate those to you, and those are included in your packet of the report to those charged with governance. And as I mentioned before, if there was a matter that really needed to be talked about, you would have known about it before we got to this point. The bottom here is, there's some supplementary schedules in the back, bonds issued, retired, and so on. We don't audit that information. We review it to make sure that the information presented is accurate. I know that Citi gets some confirmations from the banks. We review that information so that we can present it the way that they have it presented to us. Again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but although we do prepare the financial statements, management is still ultimately responsible for the financial statements and fairly presenting the accounting policies. And again, since we assist you with that, we make sure that the updated policies are in there. Management is responsible to maintain effective internal controls, and they're also responsible to maintain law provisions of laws, contracts, and to follow regulations and contracts. And obviously we look at that when we do the audit, and obviously we would tell you if there's something other than that going on. And management is responsible to provide us with all the information so that we can perform the audit. So we have gotten all that. The other thing just in here is that included in the financial statements, there are estimates. As I mentioned before, we put allowances on the accounts receivable. Those are estimates. Given a useful life to your capital assets, again, that is an estimate. So there are certain estimates, but a lot of these numbers, because it's now March, we're able to look at receivables and payables for activity that happened in 22. We can vouch that it was valid for 21 because it happened already, and we saw it because of the first couple of years in 2022. First couple of months in 2022, sorry. And that's really it here. Again, as we mentioned here, if there are journal entries that we come up with, we have to report those to you. Those are included in your packet. Where it says uncorrected, that just means if we pass on a journal entry, we're supposed to notify you. Again, we didn't pass on any journal entries. All the entries that we proposed were recorded by management, and they are included in your packet. We had no disagreements with management. And at the conclusion of this, if you accept the report, we will get a management representation letter, which kind of just lists out all the information we requested that you've provided to us, and you represent that you have given us all that information so we can complete the audit. We are independent with respect to the IDA. The communication of internal control matters. Again, I'm happy to report that we did not identify deficiencies in internal controls that we felt were material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. We did have a couple of comments. We reviewed those with management in detail, and some of those comments have been already addressed. As I said, we look at activity through today, actually through the end of March, and I know that some of those comments were already addressed. The big one there was being your IT and cybersecurity. We mentioned that last year, and unfortunately, you did get hacked. So we like the IDA to stay on top of that and hope that never happens again.
I'd like to mention one thing there. I think the board probably knows this, but it's worth reinforcing. Our IT system here is handled by the city IT department. So we're on the same email system. Many of our documents reside on the city administered servers. So the hack wasn't, it was at the IDA, but it actually was a hack of the city of Yonkers. And because the city of Yonkers was hacked and they do administer our IT system, we lost files too. So it wasn't just us. Having said that, I know, Rob, you're aware of this because you guys audit the city. In the last year, the city IT department has really stepped up in a big way to address the increasing occurrences of hacking and malware. And we do talk to them on an ongoing basis. And so we will benefit from the measures that the city's IT department is undertaking. The alternative would be for us to split off, but I think probably that would put us in a worse position because we're a small agency. We probably could not afford the measures that the city of Yonkers as a whole is taking. So I think we're better off sticking with them. But I just wanted to clarify the relationship.
Right, that's
Yeah,
very
that's-
helpful. That's very helpful, Jim, because as you know, this is a very much discussed item everywhere. Everyone is at a risk level that's hard to measure, and the protections we hope are going to be adequate. But going forward, and certainly your comment about splitting off, we would certainly it would be a very difficult thing to do and certainly doesn't seem advisable. But all right, so since you raised a very important question, I'd like to ask if anyone has any questions about this, because it's a critical area for us.
No, I just wanted to thank Jim. He's absolutely right. I should have mentioned that the IDA does share its software with the city, and that really the city was hacked. So it wasn't the IDA, I mean, directly, but indirectly. And according to you, you're right. I mean, if you were to branch off, it's very costly. So it's something to decide, but I think the city has done a lot for this not to happen again, and we'll continue with cybersecurity assessments and things like that on an annual basis.
Yeah, and I don't want
All
my,
right,
I don't-
Rob, yeah, both of you. So just
Yeah.
let's take a minute. Are there any questions from anyone? All right, so if there are no questions, we'll continue.
let me just say, I'm not, I don't want my comments to be taken as a criticism of the city, because certainly in my previous role, I was aware that there were hacking attempts on a daily basis, and one finally got through. But when you look at what happened to Yonkers compared to some other cities, Rochester, for example, which actually paid, I understand, a rather large ransom to get their data back. The city of Yonkers actually fared reasonably well. We lost some files. It took a while to recover, but eventually the city got us up and running as well as themselves. So, but it's a wake-up call.
Right, but it's a wake-up call, and it's one everywhere. It's not just here, and it's not just with the city. So everyone who deals with IT in any magnitude is being challenged. So we have to be confident that the city has the resources and the people to evaluate what is happening and take the steps that are most protective going forward.
Yes.
All right, Rob.
Okay, and I just move forward. Included in here is the management representation letter that we get at the conclusion of the audit. I don't really have to spend time, but it's just several pages, and it kind of lists out what we requested and what we received. So I don't really have to spend much time. And that's it, really. The last few pages is just a firm overview. We've grown as a company, and we're, top 27th in the country. And then more importantly, there's some other services that we offer other than audits in the back. So I know some folks are interested even on a personal level. So just like to share that with you. But that's really it with the IDA. I know I went through a lot of numbers, but if anyone has any questions, I could circle back to what has happened.
All right, are there any questions about anything in the report?
I have none.
Do you have a question, Pete?
No,
All right, does anyone else have a question or a comment? So it looks like a very thorough report, and it looks like we're in an excellent position that the IDA has taken full advantage of the ability to move forward in this last year. So we can see that by the financials and by the growth that we have had. And so it would seem that we are looking at a very healthy entity with excellent cash reserves, and that we will be able to do the things that will place us in the forefront moving forward. So if there are no comments, then may I have a motion to accept the report as submitted and to recommend it to the IDA board?
I'll make a motion.
Make a motion. Second.
Thank you. Are there any objections? If there are no objections, then the report is submitted. And so before we adjourn, we should go into this session and ask management to leave so that we would talk to Rob for a moment. So can we ask management to leave?
Sure. Fiona will just pull you into an executive session, so you'll just have to accept to go in.
All right.
Just give Fiona a moment to navigate that.
Is Rob going into the room or just the committee members?
Rob also.
Okay.
Hey, Mike. Mike,
Yeah,
are
I
you
got
still?
in-
are you
I
still
got
there?
invited. I got invited to go to the room. I declined because that's the
Yeah, I
executive
declined as
session.
well. I think it invites, I think it possibly invites everyone.
Okay.
Hey, Mike, can you just check your phone? I just sent you a text.
Will do.
Okay, thanks.
All right, we should be back in, is everybody in?
We have everyone
Okay.
back.
Yeah, we're
All
back.
right. All right, so is there any further business? Does anyone have any comments or concerns? We want to tell you, Jamie, that we all were very pleased to know about all the hard work that you've done to bring back so much that was lost during COVID and to guard what's happening in the base. And we were very pleased to know also that it is continuing. And the comments, of course, we are concerned about the outside accountant and what has happened and why, because some of the things are things that were routine that should have been in any report and should have been guarded. So we want to be assured that going forward, there will be consideration of the problem, and we leave to you a judgment of how to move forward with the outside accountant. But certainly we do not want to see a continuation of something that could jeopardize the excellent way that you have operated and the IDA. And so that consideration. So we both congratulate you and ask you to look at this and see how we can work going forward. Are there any?
Absolutely. Thank you, Cecile. And we have already put some things in motion to start to rectify that situation.
All right, so can we have a motion to rectify the situation?
Well, we will be having an extremely, first of all, we're not any happier than you are about restated expenses. That should not happen. And the outside accountant is there to make sure it doesn't happen. So we're going to be having an extremely candid conversation and review of our outside accountant. And we expect to get back to the board within 30 days with an action plan,
Right,
which
so that
which will contain our recommendations. And I can't say where they're going to go, but our outside accountant has to be up to the job and able to do it, or that outside accountant is not valuable to us.
Right. So my concern is not that the comments were ancillary, but that these were basic things that in any financial statement you would look at and understand. And so that was my concern, that it wasn't something that was a note or something that was some other area. It was the basic financial statement and a bottom line. So, that's what concerned me. Anyhow, I know that you will look at all of this because it's very important to all of us, and bring it to a conclusion that will strengthen whatever we are doing. Because I was very pleased, and I think everyone is, with the record that the IDA was able to establish for this past year to bring back so much after COVID is certainly something that or the leadership has to be congratulated for, the James and everybody working in this area. So it has meant a great deal to the city. And I think we're all elated about what's happened with Lionsgate and other things that bode well for the future. But we want to be sure that nothing happens that will jeopardize any of this. So we thank you for that. And is there any further business? Does anyone have any other concern that they would like to discuss? If not, may I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make a motion to seal.
Second.
Thank you. And thank you, Melissa and Pete, for always being very important to what happens in the IGA and for the way we move forward. Thank you. All right. The meeting is now adjourned.